My name is Lucas Winters, and this is the most terrifying story of my life. It all started when my friends and I decided to camp in Shadow Woods, a secluded forest famous for its mysteries and unexplained disappearances. We ignored the warnings from locals, who shared stories of people entering the forest and never being seen again. Our group consisted of myself, Clara Reed, my skeptical friend, Emma Blake, who loved urban legends and horror stories, and Noah Hill, the most reserved among us. We arrived at the woods as the sun was setting, marveling at the natural beauty, unaware of what awaited us. We set up our camp in a clearing near a stream. Night fell quickly, and with it came a sense of unease that none of us could explain. The sound of crickets and frogs surrounded us, but at one point, everything went strangely silent. That's when we started hearing whispers among the trees. Clara, always rational, said it was the wind, but the whispers seemed to form words. Noah walked away to investigate, and Emma followed him with her camera, determined to capture anything unusual. When they returned, Noah and Emma were pale. They had discovered strange symbols carved into the trees, and Emma swore she had seen a figure in the shadows. We decided to ignore it and sit around the campfire, trying to convince ourselves that everything was fine. However, the night only became stranger. Clara, usually a skeptic, started hearing footsteps around the tent. When we went out to investigate, we found nothing, but the feeling of being watched was undeniable. On the second day, we explored more of the forest and stumbled upon an abandoned cabin. The interior was empty except for some old furniture and signs that someone had been there recently. We decided not to tell Clara, who was already on edge with the idea of being watched. As night fell again, the situation worsened. Noises of breaking twigs and whispers intensified, and all of us were on high alert. Noah, visibly shaken, confessed that he had a feeling that something was very wrong in that forest. In the early hours of the morning, Noah disappeared. We woke up to his screams, but when we rushed out of the tent, he was nowhere to be found. We searched for hours, calling his name, but it was as if the forest had swallowed him whole. Claire started panicking, and even brave Emma looked scared. Not knowing what else to do, we decided to head back to town and seek help. But it seemed like the forest was preventing us from leaving. Every path we tried led us back to our campsite. On the third day, exhausted and desperate, we found Noah. He was in a state of shock, unable to speak. His eyes were glazed over and there were deep scratches on his arms, as if he had tried to defend himself against something. We managed to get out of the forest with Noah, but he was never the same. Doctors couldn't explain his condition, and he remained hospitalized for months. Clara, Emma, and I never returned to Shadow Woods. The memories of that experience still haunt me, and even now, as I recount this story, I feel a chill down my spine. After the incident, Clara and Emma delved deeper into the legends of Shadow Woods. They discovered that the symbols on the trees were marks made by ancient tribes who believed the forest was haunted by vengeful spirits. The disappearances over the years only reinforced this belief. Noah, after weeks in a psychiatric hospital, finally started talking about what had happened. He told us that, on the night he disappeared, he was lured by whispers calling his name. The voices led him to a part of the forest where the air felt denser and colder. He saw shadows moving between the trees, indistinct figures that seemed to observe his every move. Noah tried to run, but he was captured by something invisible that held him captive. He described a constant sense of terror, as if he were being watched by unseen eyes. The scratches on his arms, he said, were from a desperate attempt to free himself from the invisible claws that held him. Noah claimed that while he was trapped, he saw visions of missing people, all with looks of despair and fear. We never went on another camping trip. The experience changed us forever, and sometimes I wonder what really happened in that forest. But one thing I'm sure of, you won't believe this campfire horror story until you've lived through something like it yourself. My name is Olivia, and I will never forget that night in the forest. I was with my friends Alex, Sarah, and Lucas, ready for what we thought would be a typical camping adventure. But something was wrong from the start. The forest seemed darker than usual, its nocturnal sounds more sinister. As we sat around the campfire, sharing stories and laughter, we heard something moving among the trees. At first, we thought it was a wild animal, but soon we realized it was something far more disturbing. It seemed like shadows moving in the darkness, indistinct shapes that watched us with glowing eyes. We tried to ignore them, attributing our heightened nerves, but something in the air felt strange, and we couldn't ignore it any longer. As night fell completely, we lost control of the situation. Lucas, our calmest friend, started acting strangely. He smiled at nothing, as if seeing something the rest of us couldn't. Suddenly, he jumped up and ran into the forest, screaming that they were after him. We tried to stop him, but he was out of his mind, as if in a trance. Before we could do anything, he disappeared into the darkness, leaving us stunned and confused. When we found him again, he was alone in a clearing, his empty eyes fixed on something only he could see. We tried to call him back, but he seemed hypnotized, captive to some invisible force that held him prisoner. As we approached, he began to speak in a strange tongue, his words a mix of whispers and unintelligible murmurs. We tried to pull him away, but he resisted with a strength that didn't seem human. That's when we realized we weren't alone in the clearing. Strange figures moved around us, dark and sinister shapes that seemed to have a life of their own at the periphery of our vision. We were surrounded, trapped by a darkness that had no end. Our hearts pounding, we ran through the forest, each step taking us further away from the terror that pursued us. The ground was uneven, the trees closing in on us, as if pushing us back into the abyss from which we had fled. With every step we took, the shadows seemed to draw closer, their murmurs turning into malicious laughter that echoed through the forest. We knew we had to find an exit, a chance to escape before it was too late. And then we saw it. A bright light appeared between the trees, a light that seemed to call out to us, promising safety and salvation. We ran towards it, our hearts filled with hope that we would finally be safe from the darkness that haunted us. As we emerged from the forest, we found ourselves back at our campsite, trembling and exhausted, but alive. The sun was rising on the horizon, dispelling the darkness and bringing a new day. Lucas finally found his voice to explain what he had seen when he disappeared into the forest. He told us about a distorted vision where he thought he was alongside us, walking and talking. But when he snapped out of it, he found himself in the middle of the forest, alone and confused. He rejoined us, his expression filled with fear and confusion. As we sat around the campfire, he explained how the shadows seemed to move around him, whispering unintelligible words and casting scary illusions. Lucas trembled as he spoke, his words laden with genuine terror. He described sinister figures contorting among the trees, distorted faces watching him with hungry eyes. It was as if the forest itself was alive, a malevolent entity that fed on the fear and darkness that dwelled within our hearts. As we listened to his story, we felt the fear and horror of what he had endured, still sensing that something terrible lurked in the depths of the forest. We knew we had barely escaped, that we were alive only by sheer luck. But as the fire crackled before us, we felt relief, a certainty that we were safe for now. We knew the night could have ended very differently, but by some unknown miracle, we were together, alive, and ready to face the new day. Yet, even as we left, we knew that the memories of that night would haunt our dreams forever, a somber reminder that evil still exists in this world, patiently lurking in the shadows, waiting to engulf us once more. May this story serve as a warning to those who dare venture where they shouldn't, a reminder that we don't always escape unscathed from the icy embrace of darkness. The night rose like a cloak of darkness as Tyler and I, along with my friend Matt, decided to venture onto an abandoned trail on the outskirts of town. Equipped with flickering flashlights and hearts heavy with excitement and apprehension, we ventured into the forest's darkness, leaving behind the safety of civilization's lights. The path snaked before us like a coiled serpent in the dense foliage. Every step was marked by the unsettling noise of our own footsteps and the rustling of twisted branches. The shadows of the trees seemed to reach out towards us, like hungry claws lurking in the darkness. After hours of hiking, we reached a hidden clearing where a sinister altar stood like a monument to the darkness that dwelled in that place. Ancient and mysterious symbols adorned its walls, and an aura of unease hung in the air around it, as if nature itself feared that sinister presence. Our flashlights faltered as we approached the altar, shedding light on the terrifying figure standing before it. It was a shadowy, twisted entity with burning eyes that glowed in the darkness like fiery embers. Its contours moved in a distorted manner, as if made of living, hungry shadows. A stifled scream escaped my lips as Matt and I turned and ran back down the dark trail, fear propelling us forward. But the forest seemed to have a life of its own, shifting and twisting around us, as if trying to trap us in its eternal grasp. We got lost in the darkness, each step taking us further away from the safety we sought. Disoriented and terrified, we struggled to find our way through the endless forest, each tree transforming into a sinister obstacle in our path. The darkness seemed to close in on us, threatening to engulf us entirely, yet we kept fighting, determined to escape that prison of shadows and horror. Finally, after a torturous journey through the darkness, we found our way back to the edge of the forest. In each other's arms, we stumbled out of that nightmare, trembling with fear. The cool night air filled our lungs, bringing a relief we could hardly believe. That haunted night stayed with us for a long time, and we vowed never again to venture into the darkness of that forgotten trail. If you enjoyed the video you just watched, you won't want to miss this next one. Click now and I'll see you there.